Over 2,000 U.S. Special Forces, backed by stealth drones and armored tanks, dismantled the so-called El Silencio, the deadly silence, rescuing over 2,000 civilians from underground prisons without a single casualty. But how did they execute such an unbelievably precise operation? What secrets lie hidden in the jungle? And why did the Pentagon employ tactics seen only in warfare? Comment. #1 to dive into the story behind the historic raid that shook the underworld and rewrote the rules of modern warfare. On July 10, 2025, over 2,000 U.S. Special Forces, supported by stealth drones and armored tanks, launched an assault on a vast human trafficking drug and weapons empire run by two American brothers, Lucas and Jared Stone. More than 3,000 cartel gunmen were either killed or captured, and over 2,000 civilians were rescued from underground prisons. Some were marked for organ harvesting, others destined for the darkest corners of the global sex trade. But how could the United States execute a mission so precise that not a single civilian or soldier was lost? What secrets are buried in the jungle? And why did the Pentagon resort to violence and weapons typically reserved for warfare? Find out now. In the lawless shadows of the Darien Gap, a brutal jungle expanse between Panama and Colombia, stood a fortress unlike any other, not built from stone, but from firepower, fear, and flesh. It was here that Lucas and Jared Stone, American-born brothers and former Special Forces, forged an empire. An empire not rooted in ideals, but in exploitation. They weren't just cartel bosses, they were warlords. Their private army of over 3,000 was trained in tactics ripped straight from U.S. military playbooks. Recruits were drilled like Marines, deployed like Rangers, and equipped like frontline soldiers. Heavy machine guns, shoulder-fired missiles, armored transports, even stolen anti-aircraft systems, all concealed beneath the jungle canopy, guarded by snipers and sensors. They didn't just traffic drugs. They trafficked humans systematically, brutally, and on a massive scale. Over 5,000 civilians from across Central and South America vanished into their network. At least 126 were confirmed U.S. citizens. Some were sold into forced labor. Others were sent to organ harvesting farms. The most horrific cases involved victims marked for trafficking into the Golden Triangle, a region notorious for sex slavery. Their compound sprawled across 37 square miles of uncharted jungle. Locals called it El Silencio, the silence, because no one who entered ever came out. The area was patrolled by heavily armed helicopters, and their naval assets included retrofitted fishing boats with deck-mounted weapons used to control river routes and smuggle by sea. Multiple U.S. Special Forces teams had attempted to infiltrate El Silencio over the past 4 years. All failed. The dense, swampy, ravine-riddled jungle terrain neutralized conventional military advantages. Worse, the Stone brothers embedded civilians into their base's design schools, clinics, even family housing, all to deter direct assaults and shield their operations with human lives. The world knew of these crimes, but until now, no nation dared to strike. That changed when President Trump received confirmation that 2 American children aged 9 and 13 were found in a cell slated for dismemberment surgery. In that moment, a line was crossed. The United States no longer viewed El Cencio as a cartel outpost. Before the storm of steel and fire came frustration. Years of frustration. The United States hadn't ignored El Cencio. On the contrary, from 2021 to 2024, at least 6 covert operations were launched by elite units, including Delta Force SEAL Team 6 and CIA SAD operatives. Each time the outcome was the same: failure, retreat, and U.S. casualties. In Operation Black Torch in 2022, 19 U.S. Special Forces soldiers were killed when their Black Hawk helicopters were shot down by coordinated fire from shoulder-launched surface-to-air missiles, possibly smuggled Strela 2 systems from Eastern Europe. In another operation the following year, a 12-man recon team vanished without a trace just 18 miles from the compound. Their bodies were never found. The jungle terrain favored the defenders, with 14-foot sinkholes, dense canopies blocking satellite signals, and humidity-fogging drone lenses. The Darien Gap neutralized America's technological edge. Even with satellite intel and thermal imaging, soldiers found themselves lost in a maze of mud and fog, hunted by a battle-hardened militia that knew the jungle like their own skin. But it wasn't just the terrain. It was the civilian disguise. The Stone brothers built fake villages within their domain, complete with schools, churches, even staged weddings, all to conceal bunkers and weapons caches. Soldiers hesitated, fearing civilian casualties. That hesitation cost them. Trapped snipers disguised as farmers and booby-trapped buildings turned El Cencio into a deadly snare. Perhaps the most harrowing statistic came from a 2023 raid where U.S. forces found a charred compound containing 82 incinerated bodies, including 17 children, all believed to be trafficking victims. The building had been torched by the cartel during the raid, a scorched earth tactic to erase evidence and punish escapees. Washington was backed into a corner. Public outrage surged. The Pentagon called El Cencio the most fortified non-state territory in the Western Hemisphere. Each failure heightened the urgency, but also underscored a brutal reality. Conventional tactics were useless. If the U.S. wanted to dismantle this horrific empire, they needed a new kind of warfare, not just boots on the ground, but algorithms, satellites, and precision. On July 10, 2025, the United States ran out of patience. After years of deaths, disappearances, and dismembered bodies smuggled out of the Darien jungle, Washington authorized an unprecedented mission in the Western Hemisphere, dubbed Operation Iron Justice. It was not merely a raid, but an annihilation campaign. Its scale was unparalleled. 100 elite troops from U.S. Army Rangers, Marines, and Delta Force units were deployed, supported by 30 M1A2 Abrams tanks, 45 Stryker armored fighting vehicles, and 12 M109A7 Paladin self-propelled howitzers. But the true revolution came from above. The centerpiece of the assault was the MQ-20 Avenger drone, America's most advanced unmanned hunter-killer platform. Equipped with facial recognition, AI, multispectral infrared imaging, and real-time target discrimination algorithms, it could distinguish armed insurgents from civilians with 98.7% accuracy, even through dense jungle canopies. Each drone was linked to the Sentinel network. a constellation of satellites capable of scanning 30 square miles every 11 seconds, mapping heat signatures, weapons caches, and human movement. This allowed planners to construct a 3D model of the enemy compound, detailed down to individual bedrooms. Are you impressed by this drone technology? If so, leave comment #2, if not leave #5. Simultaneously, 3 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers in the Caribbean launched Tomahawk Block 5 missiles, each equipped with armor-piercing warheads and the ability to self-adjust trajectories if civilians entered the blast zone. These missiles would neutralize key defense hubs, communication centers, and power stations before the ground assault began. To prevent civilian casualties, the operation was designed with pinpoint precision. The combat zone was divided into 32 battle grids, each monitored by drones, satellites, and a command team using augmented reality displays. The military had real-time biometric data on potential hostages. Even the Abrams tanks were equipped with active protection systems and precision-calibrated GPS modules to minimize structural damage. As a Pentagon general put it, this wasn't a sledgehammer strike. This was a scalpel guided by satellites, drones, and discipline. The plan accounted for every footstep, every blast radius, and every potential refugee movement. For the first time in the fight against organized crime, full-scale military warfare met Silicon Valley's most sophisticated algorithms. But it wasn't just about technology, it was about justice. Justice measured in meters, seconds, and megawatts. After years of failure, the US didn't just come back. They came back with math steel and no intention of missing. At exactly 3:00 a.m. local time on July 10, 2025, the night sky over the Darien Gap blazed with fire. 12 MQ-20 Avenger drones roared through the jungle canopy in complete silence. Within 20 seconds, their initial strikes hit their marks. Explosions rocked 4 critical command nodes, severing the cartel's communications. Minutes later, 6 Tomahawk Block 5 missiles rained down, obliterating radar stations, weapons caches, and fortified watchtowers, structures once deemed untouchable. Inside the jungle, the Stone Brothers' empire descended into chaos. From the south, 3 battalions of U.S. Army Rangers advanced under cover of drone-generated smoke and radar jamming. Using infrared goggles and silent comms, they breached the outer defenses and stormed the enemy compound. Over 30 Abrams tanks plowed through wooden barricades and sandbags, firing 120 mm heat rounds that tore through cartel bunkers like paper. From the north, Marines fast-roped from 8 MH-60 Seahawk helicopters landing mere meters from the holding cells. In under 12 minutes, they secured the detention areas and liberated 2,019 civilians, including 41 U.S. citizens, all moments away from being sold into organ trafficking or Southeast Asian sex trade networks. The cartel fought back fiercely. Rocket-propelled grenades, 50 mm machine gun nests, and mines turned the central plaza into a battlefield. But U.S. ground forces were prepared. Javelin missile teams neutralized resistance sector by sector. M109 howitzers on the perimeter fired precision shells, pulverizing enemy strongpoints without touching civilian shelters. By 6:00 a.m., it was over. The casualty count was staggering: 337 cartel gunmen killed, including Lucas and Jared Stone, their bodies found in a bombed-out command bunker. 728 were captured alive now, awaiting trial for crimes against humanity. No U.S. casualties, no civilian deaths. Elsencio, once an impregnable fortress buried in the most impenetrable jungle on Earth, was reduced to smoldering ash. The 40-foot-high walls of the compound, its heat-resistant bunkers and underground tunnels were obliterated. Its legacy of terror was erased in under 3 hours. From the command deck of the USS Roosevelt, a single encrypted message was sent to the Pentagon: target cleared. All hostages rescued, resistance neutralized. The United States had just executed the most precise large-scale anti-cartel operation in history. And in doing so, they not only freed the victims, but rewrote the rules of modern warfare. As the smoke cleared over Elsencio's ruins, the numbers told a story of total collapse: over 3,000 cartel fighters dead, more than 700 captured, and 2,000 innocent lives freed from cages, chains, and death sentences. What was once a fortress of darkness is now a graveyard of tyranny. Among the bodies recovered were the mangled remains of Lucas and Jared Stone, found deep beneath a collapsed command bunker. Forensic teams confirmed their identities through DNA and dental records. Their deaths marked not only the end of an empire, but the collapse of a myth: the belief that geography, weaponry, and human shields could protect evil from justice. The Pentagon issued a brief but resounding statement. There will be no sanctuary for monsters, no borders for justice, no mercy for those who traffic in human lives. Cartels across Latin America, Africa, and Southeast Asia descended into panic. Intelligence agencies intercepted communications of command nodes going dark, assets being burned, and traffickers fleeing to remote regions. America's message was received. Any group threatening U.S. citizens or humanity would be hunted not as criminals, but as insurgents. Yet this assault was not just a tactical triumph. It was a moral victory. Not a single civilian was killed. Not a single U.S. soldier was lost. The operation proved that overwhelming force and surgical precision could coexist when guided by discipline, technology, and resolve. For the world's most violent trafficking organizations, the message is now clear. You can run, you can hide, you can build cities in the jungle or fortresses underground. But if you cross the line, the full might of the United States will find you. And when it does, there will be no warning, no escape, no survivors. The destruction of Elsencio was not just the end of a human trafficking empire. It was a statement. For decades, cartels, warlords, and transnational criminal organizations thrived on an assumption that sluggish bureaucracies, sacred borders, and even the most heinous crimes could be concealed in jungles behind children under layers of corruption and fear. That assumption is now dead. The United States didn't just dismantle a criminal enterprise. They exposed a dangerous truth. The global black market for human lives has evolved far beyond street corners and border checkpoints. It is armed, fortified, and strategic. And from now on, the response will be too. The strike on the Stone brothers marked the birth of a new military doctrine. Elsencio lies in ashes, but the question lingers: is this the dawn of a new era where cartels are hunted like wartime enemies? Will the U.S. extend this strategy to other dark corners of the globe? Or will this remain a historic one-off strike? Share your thoughts in the comments. Where do you think the war on global crime will lead? And if you faced monsters like the Stone brothers, what would you do? Don't forget to subscribe and share to help us spread the truth and illuminate the world's shadows.